Welcome, everybody. Great to see all of you. I hope that you're cozy as winter keeps its firm grip on all of us. I guess that the Pescatawny Phil was right on this year, but it's beautiful. We're so happy that you are spending some time with us today to talk about the end of life and facing that with humor and heart. And Jen Carlo is our program manager. She, as you know, organizes all of these events for us, as well as all of our in-person events throughout the state. And I just introduced myself. Sorry, jumped over that. I'm Amy. I'm the executive director of Patient Choices Vermont. I reside here in Burlington. And just so thrilled that you're with us. I will go ahead and turn the program over to Jen.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Delighted to see so many of you here in the middle of the day. Thank you for joining us, and a special thank you to those whose names I'm now starting to recognize from past presentations. So thanks for being frequent flyers on this monthly program. All right, thank you. Patient Choices Vermont, our organization is nonprofit. We're funded by donations and grants. We don't receive any government funding from the state or from the feds, of course. And we were founded in 2002, successfully advocated for the passage of Act 39 and the establishment of legal medical aid in dying in Vermont in 2013. And our organization has worked to safeguard and improve the law and provide education and outreach since then. Act 39 was amended in 2023 to allow non-residents to access medical aid in dying in Vermont. And it's worth noting that our organization is run almost entirely by volunteers who dedicate a lot of time and talent to this. So I don't read a lot of slides, but medical aid in dying has a very particular definition. So please bear with me. I do read this one, and then we're going to talk about some of the highlighted points. Medical aid in dying allows qualified adults who are terminally ill and who are capable of making their own decisions the option to receive a prescription medication to be self-administered to bring about a peaceful death at the time of the patient's choosing. And medical aid in dying can only be accessed by qualified adults through a specific process that's laid out in Act 39, and there are no exceptions or shortcuts to that process. The qualifications for medical aid in dying in Vermont are really very similar to those in any other U.S. jurisdiction. Where MAID is legal, you must be an adult, of course. You must be 18 or older. You must have a terminal diagnosis and a prognosis of 6 months or less. You need to have the mental capacity to make this decision in particular, and that needs to be true at all points during the process, including the time of ingestion. Your request for medical aid in dying needs to be well informed, it needs to be voluntary, and you need to be able to self-administer the medication. And all qualifications must be met in all cases. There's a very specific process to access medical aid in dying if you feel that that's something that you want to pursue. And it is laid out in Act 39, which is accessible on our website. You need to make 2 oral requests to a prescribing physician, and they need to be 15 days apart. That waiting period is built into the law as a bit of a safeguard. And you also need to make a written request to your prescribing physician. It's a form from the Department of Health, also available on our website and on the Department of Health website, and it requires 2 witnesses who are not related to you and not someone on your care team. Once you've completed all of that, you need to have a second physician that will also confirm that you qualify for medical aid in dying and that you have completed all the steps of the process. Once the process has been completed, the prescription for the medication can be written. I'm going to stop here, draw breath, and just make sure that there are no questions.
Jen, there was a question in the chat. So in case people missed my answer, the question was, are all states that offer MAID services open to non-residents, or did the court ruling only apply in Vermont? So I responded that in 2023, Vermont removed its residency requirement. The only other state that allows non-residents access is Oregon.
Thank you. And that was a good question, whoever asked it. Thank you very much. Keep them coming. On the day of ingestion, the patient will take 2 medications for nausea about half an hour before the medical aid in dying medication is ingested. And after confirming again that this is what you want to do, you want to ingest the medication, you need to be able to drink the medication without assistance. It comes in a powder from the pharmacy. It's compounded medication of 5 different elements, and it's mixed with about 2 ounces of a clear liquid. Generally, we suggest water or apple juice. The patient will fall asleep generally in 5 minutes or so, maybe just a little bit longer, but not much longer than that. You'll fall asleep very quickly, and the patient will not awaken again. In fact, will go deeper into unconsciousness. The time to death can vary. I need to amend this slide. About 80% of patients will die within about 2 hours. Sometimes it can be a bit longer depending on the state of the patient's body and especially the patient's GI tract. Your prescribing physician should be aware of any red flags or anything else that may cause a longer time until death, so that the family and the support people around you can be prepared for that. And we strongly recommend hospice enrollment. We're going to talk a little bit more about hospice in this presentation. We strongly recommend hospice enrollment for any number of reasons: the wraparound services, the support with symptom management, any number of reasons. And one of the reasons is that if you are under hospice care, your death can be pronounced by a hospice nurse. And that really kind of simplifies the process after you've ingested and after you've passed away. Medical aid in dying is voluntary, and that is true for everyone in the process. Qualified patients are able to pursue medical aid in dying, and it's always the patient's choice. It's a patient-driven process. You can stop the process and you can rescind a request at any time. You can go have that first meeting and make a first request to a prescriber, and if you decide that this is not something that you want to do, you can change your mind and stop the process right up until the moment of ingestion. And it's so important to note that it's always voluntary and always based on the patient's choice. Medical aid in dying is also voluntary for medical providers. There are doctors who will, for whatever reason, choose not to participate in medical aid in dying. So please be aware of that. And sometimes if your physician does not choose to participate in medical aid in dying, we hope that they may be able to refer you to a physician who does. But please bear in mind that not all physicians participate in this. We have resources on our website and at our in-person programs to help you talk to physicians, frame the conversation, some sample questions, that kind of thing. And hospice enrollment, we think, is so important that we mention it 2 slides in a row. So again, we strongly recommend hospice enrollment for anyone seeking medical aid in dying. MAID is not suicide. There's a legal difference. People who use medical aid in dying will have death certificates that reflect their underlying illness or disease as their cause of death. That has legal ramifications, practical ramifications, and emotional ramifications for a lot of patients and their families. Medical aid in dying is also not euthanasia. The requirement that the patient be able to self-administer the medication is absolute, and that's for a very specific reason. It's also not for everyone. There are definitely most of us probably who may not qualify or may not choose to pursue medical aid in dying at the end of our lives, and it's a choice that qualified individuals can make. We'd like to encourage you to explore our website. It is information dense. Take a couple of passes at it because there's a lot of really good information on there. There's all of the information that I just shared about the qualifications and the process to access MAID. There's links to the relevant forms, including the Vermont Department of Health. There's a lot of patient and family stories, people who were kind and generous enough to share their personal experiences to help people understand the process at a more personal level. There's a clinician's guide with some wonderful wonderful information both for medical providers and for families and patients to be aware of. There's all kinds of news and other information, and we'll also encourage you to sign up for our mailing list, and we'll put some links in the chat a bit later to help you do that. If for no other reason than you'll find out about the upcoming sessions of Exit Matters. So there's always lots of good information in our newsletters. There are two groups of individuals that we work with that we want to just highlight here. We have at least one Wayfinder on the call. Wayfinders are not official PCV volunteers, but they are affiliated with us. They're independent and collaborative. They're folks with all kinds of rich end-of-life care experience, hospice nurses, care managers, doulas, and they work with people, primarily non-residents, although they do serve Vermonters as well, who need help arranging some of the logistics, finding a prescriber, finding a place to ingest, finding other arrangements in Vermont if they're coming from outside Vermont to access MAID. There is a page on our website with information about individual Wayfinders. So I'd encourage you to look at that. And then we also have our helpline. Helpline volunteers are officially with PCV. We have a web form on our site where people can write in and ask questions and seek information about medical aid in dying. And we get more than 1,000 of those inquiries every year. We have 4 very dedicated helpline volunteers who spend a week at a time responding quickly and compassionately and as fully as possible to folks who are seeking information. And people reach out to us from across the country, and we're happy to share information during what we know can be a very challenging time for them. And again, all of that is on our website, and so would encourage you to take a look, patientchoices.org, and I will put that in the chat as well. Let me pause again. Any questions that Amy hasn't already answered in the chat?
There were 2 additional questions that came in. One person was asking what options might be available to a patient with ALS, in particular if they've lost the use of their arms. You want to address that, or would you like me to address that?
We encourage folks to work with their prescribers about any physical challenges. ALS, of course, comes to mind, but there are other challenges that can present difficulties to folks when it comes to self-ingesting. And so we encourage folks to work with their medical providers to help them. There are different ways in which people can self-administer the medication. You can drink the medication. You can also drink it through a straw if that helps you. You can sometimes use an ostomy or a feeding tube. It needs to go into the GI tract. And there are folks who have ingested rectally as well, as long as you can push the plunger. So again, your prescriber would be the best person to give you information that's tailored to your specific circumstances.
Thank you. And then someone wanted to know what VSED is.
VSED is voluntary stopping of eating and drinking. And it is a choice sometimes made by folks at the end of their lives to bring about their death. And again, a healthcare provider might be able to give you some more specifics on that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pin our speaker, Nina. We are so grateful that Nina Thompson has been able to join us today. Nina is an interfaith chaplain for the UVM Home Health and Hospice, and she's been doing that since 2019, and she's been working and volunteering in end-of-life care for a good time longer than that. In 2012, Nina founded a nonprofit called the Wake Up to Dying Project to encourage people to think and talk about death, dying, and life. And there's some truly amazing videos and stories left from that project on the Vermont Ethics Network. She's also worked with them doing community outreach and individual guidance and coordination. And she draws her passion and capacity for this work from her Zen Buddhist faith and practice, and she's going to talk a bit about that as well. So, Nina, we are so grateful that you're with us today, and I'm going to turn the floor to you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Interestingly enough, this organization and the Wake Up to Dying project sort of started around the same time. Um, the 20, well, when you got the legislation passed, I guess. That was 2013, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So Wake Up to Dying started around 2012. But yeah, I'd like to share just a little bit more of my journey to becoming a hospice chaplain. I think it shows sort of the spiritual, the practical, and the emotional path, and how all those threads came together to get me to where I wanted to be, which is working at the bedside of people who are dying. I've been working on that goal for like 20 years, and I'm still working on it. I'm still educating myself all the time. So I think the first thing just to share is that when my dad died in 2005, I wanted to build a box for his ashes, and everyone in my family thought that was ridiculous. They're like, why would you do that? Funeral homes, they do that. And I'm like, I'm going to do it. And I set out to do that. And what happened was I worked with people in my community that I wasn't super close with at the time, but I came to deeply appreciate them. And I think they deeply appreciated the process of working on a box with me. It became a very quiet and contemplative, reflective exercise. And throughout it, I realized that we have been removed from the work of helping people die, from helping people be buried, and all of that. And we needed to get back to it. And I wanted to find a way to bring community back to dying. So set about to do that. Thinking about green burials 21 years ago, community funeral homes, and all sorts of things. And found my way in through being a hospice volunteer. That was the first thing that I did. And it was, deeply meaningful to me. And then actually through like a spiritual crisis, I got pushed back into my own spiritual practice of Zen Buddhism. I had done it before. I got driven back to it. I sat on the cushion and I wanted to figure out what was true for myself. And as a hospice volunteer at the time, I got a phone call during that time of my life, and this man called me and he said, who I knew from work, and he said to me, "You are the best project manager I know, and I'm dying, and I wonder if you'd be willing to project manage my death for me." And I thought that was a fascinating question, and that was like in 2011 or something like that, and we set about to do it. And with the Zen practice and project managing a dying process, when those two things crossed, it was like a technicolor world opened up to me, and I wanted to know what the secret of the universe was, because I was convinced it was at that intersection. So, like anybody would do, I Googled Zen and death. I think maybe some people would do that. So I Googled Zen and death and found the Zen Center for Contemplative Care in New York City, and went and did a year-long program with them called Foundations. And there was an entry point into chaplaincy. I did 100 hours of clinical training under them, and I did it at Gifford, and I did it at the VNA, and I did it with Biata. I did a whole bunch of supervised training, and then suddenly the Wake Up to Dying project was born. So the Wake Up to Dying project was a project that encouraged people to think and talk about dying, inviting people to explore the topic through art and story and presentations and literature. And we created these spaces and in green squares outside of the library, for example. And we were open for 3 to 4 days. And we invited people just to come and explore this topic as they were able to. And it was pretty powerful. And we did that project for 6 years, 5, 6 years, and then I put it on hospice. And it died. And partly the reason I did that was because people all around the world started doing it. It was sort of an early movement. What do we call it? The death positive movement. I was sort of an early person in that. And so when everyone started to do it around the world, I realized that I didn't have to do it. And it was like Nina and Montpelier trying to do this, or like IDEO in San Francisco, and they had deeper pockets than I did. So And I felt like my work was done, and what I really wanted to do was be at the bedside. So, as powerful as that work was, I set about trying to become a chaplain. And before I did that, I did a very deep dive into my spiritual practice with my teacher, my Zen teacher in Shelburne at the Vermont Zen Center. And, it was critical. And I actually did that on purpose. When I started to see this path really opening up and the deep spiritual requirements at the bedside, the groundedness and the who I wanted to be at the bedside, I knew I couldn't do it alone. So I got a teacher to help me find my way. And that has made, to me, all the difference. So I did that, and then I did 2 clinical pastoral education units, one at UVM, or 2 at UVM, half one at Dartmouth. So that's a training for chaplaincy, which is critically important to help us know how to navigate that role at the bedside as a spiritual practitioner. And then Vermont Ethics Network for a year, advanced care planning and education. And that was great. I got a grant to do that outreach and education. It was super important for me to learn that. And I still think about that every day in my job. And then chaplaincy 7 years ago. I started as a per diem at UVM Home Health and Hospice. And now I did community work. We did community. We went through the respite house. And today I am the chaplain at the Respite House Monday through Thursday, McClure Miller Respite House in Colchester. And so that's the current placement I have. And so that brings me to the present moment. And I am spotlighted for myself. Is that normal? I'm just like talking to Nina. Is that normal? Okay, I'll get used to that.
You're good.
Maybe I can do like gallery or something. Oh yeah, that's better. Now I'm talking to all of you. That was weird. So this is an endless topic, spiritual care at end of life. It is huge and massive, and we have like 35 minutes or so to get through it. So we'll do the best we can. But the first thing I want to do is actually just take a moment to arrive together to this space, if we can do that, just to ground ourselves. And we'll take a moment of silence just to arrive, feeling our bodies in the chair, our feet on the ground, quietly opening our minds and our hearts to each other, to the work, to what brings us today, setting an intention for clarity and kindness and laughter, reflection. I'm just doing that, and I'm going to kick us off with a little bit of a poem, and before I start a moment of silence here. And it is by a Zen monk named Zoan Ichiyo. And it says, "Empty-handed I enter the world, barefoot I leave it. My coming, my going, 2 simple happenings that got entangled." I'll read that once again. Empty-handed I enter the world, barefoot I leave it. My coming, my going, 2 simple happenings that got entangled. And we'll just quiet for a second here, a little bit. Opening our hearts, opening our hands, our minds. Just arriving to this sacred space that we are in. Okay. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And I am curious, what if maybe in the chat we could do a little quick a bit like what brought you today? What brings you to end of life? What brings you to this conversation? Or it's because you're not calling wayfinder, you're a wayfinder, you're interested in spiritual care, you might are you ill, and this is all an interesting topic for you for that reason. So just a little bit of what brought you today, and maybe what you're hoping to hear, because I do hope this is a conversation. I'm more of a facilitator of conversation than keynote, though I can talk.
Nina, while folks are doing that,
Mm-hmm.
you describe yourself, and it may be an official title, as an interfaith chaplain. And during our pre-meetings, you spoke very eloquently about what it means to be an interfaith chaplain or
Yeah.
spiritual care
Mm-hmm.
provider, as opposed to one that's particularly tied to a given
Yeah.
faith tradition. I'm just wondering if you can kind of talk
Sure.
about that a little bit with
Sure.
folks.
I was trying you pay attention for me to that stuff, and
I'm on
I'll
it.
speak. That's awesome. So yes, we are interfaith chaplains, which means we serve everybody and people that aren't attached to any sort of spiritual or faith tradition. I think I'll do it this way. This is how when I go into a room at the respite house, how I introduce myself. I let people know that we are in hospice. We take care of mind, body, and spirit. It is about taking care of the whole person. We want to hold every part of them. And so we take care of mind, body, and spirit, nursing, LNAs, social workers, volunteers, and spiritual care. So we can be called spiritual caregivers or chaplains. To me, they're interchangeable. The reason I'd like to use spiritual care a little bit more is because chaplain has some connotations to it. So people automatically think, not everybody, but a lot of people automatically think I'm a minister of some kind, and I'm not. And as an interfaith chaplain, we are there to serve people in their needs, whatever those may be. And I'll say to people, whatever floats your boat, really, is what I'm here to hold you in. And I take care of people, Catholics, devout Catholics, to atheists, and I'll say from, NASCAR to nature. whatever it is that is bigger than you, that holds you, that you take refuge in. And so people laugh at that, and that sometimes is a good little opening. But we're a secular state, so we have a lot of people. We have a lot of people that nature is their church, and I want people to understand that they don't have to decline spiritual care if it's kayaking, or if they've had something go down at the church that with them that has caused distress. That is, we don't have to focus on that. We can focus on other things, the great spirit, the universe, baseball, rock and roll, God, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, Christian, whatever it is, we are there to hold them. And it's not about what we are. It's not about the individual. And that, I think, is something that taking CPEs is really helpful for, is to help us know we're not there to bring what we believe in. We're there to hold space and to hear what people believe in and to reflect that back and hold them in that.
So, Nina, I have been watching people's responses in the chat, and there's a really fascinating array of experiences that have brought people here, including someone who's writing a book on eulogies,
Cool.
someone who is an ingestion site host, someone who is a lot of folks who are working in end-of-life care, either through hospice or in other ways, someone who's in pursuit of common peace at the end of her life and looking for a support path for her son after she dies. And several people, though, have mentioned their own Buddhist identification. And so maybe you could talk a little bit more about how your Buddhist practice informs your work.
Yeah, and I think it's important to again say that I'm not a Buddhist I'm a Buddhist in the room because I can't separate that out, but I'm not a Buddhist chaplain. I'm an interfaith chaplain. So when I go into the room, very frequently people will say to me, "So what church are you from?" I'm like, "Yep, I'm actually not from a church. I'm an interfaith chaplain, and I support people, whatever their faith and whatever their spirituality is. And we hold them in that. And what church are you associated with? Like, actually, this is my church, I'll say. Interfaith chaplaincy is my church. And if they press, I'm happy to say I am a Buddhist. I'm a Zen Buddhist. That is my root. But what's most important to me is holding you in your faith. I love holding people in their faith. So again, I'll speak a little bit about Buddhism, but I just want to be super clear that that's how I've been trained to approach the room, and that's what I let people know, and that's how it goes in there for me. But certainly, being in Buddhism, being able to sit with what is, sit in a mystery, sit in the not knowing, having a compassionate, grounded presence helps me show up at the bedside when people are angry or afraid or confused or curious, wondering. So it helps me not have to answer questions for them, but to be able to hold the not knowing with them and to guide them through that. That's one of the ways that it helps. There's different spiritual Buddhist ideas. One is the ability to bear witness. So Bernie Glassman talks about not knowing, bearing witness, and offering compassionate action or right action. And so sitting in the not knowing, I drop any ideas that I have and hold that space for them. And bearing witness is deep presence, it's a practice of deep presence. And it's profound when you can feel it start to shift the room. When you can feel the energy drop. And that's a beautiful thing, to hold a space, be able to hold a container. And I can't do that without my practice. And I sometimes can't do it with my practice, if I'm being totally honest. It's like sometimes there's a lot of energy in a room and I can rev up, but I have a lot of practices that bring me down, grounding me. And right action. And right action might be offering continuing silence. It might be a prayer. It might be a blessing. It might be offering guided imagery. And I do a lot of work with guided imagery, actually, and I can talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But being able to talk about the mystery in ways that don't have dogma in them. I think Zen gives me that chance. It's not that it couldn't sound like dogma, but it's so universal. The language of is universal. Like I might say, I always ask permission. Would it be okay with you for me to share a little image of how I see the process of dying? And if I get a yes, I might say this comes from a Buddhist perspective. And what it is I feel like we are all part of this ocean of consciousness, divinity. You can call it God. You can call it whatever you want it to be, whatever it is to you. And we are all part of that big source. But as we were born and as we live, we express, and we're the waves. And the dog is a wave, and the tree is a wave, and you're a wave, and I'm a wave. And sometimes it's a short little rolling wave. Sometimes it's a big wave that goes and crashes onto the beach. But we are all an expression of that unity, an expression of that source. And then after death, the wave returns to the ocean. So in that way, I don't feel that we're disconnected ever. We are connected, we express individually, and we return. And for families and for individuals, that can be a super comforting image, especially when they aren't when their belief isn't just about heaven. So that's one of the ways that I use Buddhism's philosophy or imagery to help hold people in the mystery. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Richard has put a lovely comment about a personal experience with a hospital chaplain who was a Buddhist while his mother-in-law was dying. So I'll just call that to folks' attention and invite Richard, if he's so inclined, to talk a little bit more about that. Meg has her hand up, and then Karen is asking if you could speak more about your practice in guided imagery.
Oh,
So
sure.
we can do that in whatever order. Meg,
Meg, you
did you
want
want
to
to go,
go
or do
on?
we want to continue with guided imagery?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guided
All right.
imagery is a big theme of mine. So, and it goes into medical aid and dying. I've used it that way. So maybe let's ask Meg and then let's come back to guided imagery.
All right, Meg.
So much to do, so little time.
I
Oh, and
know.
I always feel like that with you, Nina. I love talking with you so much.
Mm,
Um, you know, because my work as a wayfinder is often so logistical.
mhm.
And I wonder if maybe, family members who have people who are dying close to them might be kind of stuck in the same box where it becomes harder to open into that space of the emotional and the spiritual and, you know, to issue that invitation that you say, I always ask them, and for me to switch gears into something that is more, woo-woo from a lot of my clients' perspective. um, I'm just wondering if you have any tricks. It's like reading the room and
Yeah.
just knowing like when is the moment to sense it's time. This is what's needed right here. Is I'm sure
The
much more
words or the
hard.
prayer, you mean?
Sorry?
Are you saying the time for words or action or
Just sometimes just slowing things down a little
oh,
bit. Just,
yeah.
asking, is there something more that's going on here? Is there something else we need to be talking about? Is there, there's like the broil of the surface level of life, and then there's everything else that's going on down here.
Mm.
And shifting that gear.
Hmm. Well, I think I'm at being at the respite house helps. Like we all know why we're there. Usually, not always. But I think I even asked permission to come in and sit down, right? May I come in and sit down? And I just, I use my body to sink in. I'm pretty casual in a way. I don't take myself super seriously, though I take the space seriously, but even, holding that lightly too. I think one of the things I'm able to do is hold the space, use my body as a tool to see what's happening, and also to ground the space. Um, and I can kind of casually, I mean, there's a million scenarios that are popping in my head, so I don't quite know where to start. But hypothetically, the family's wound up and they aren't letting the person quiet down, right? So that makes it hard sometimes to leave, right? It's hard to leave this body anyway, as you've been in it for 60, 70, 80, 90 years. We're pretty attached to it. So it's hard to leave. So how can I help that? How can I help the family settle down? One of the things I do is say, would it be okay if I just talk to your loved one just for a little bit? I sit down, I ask people to gather around and I ask them to tell me about their loved one. What's important? What do I need to know? This is, at this point, might be assuming that they're no longer responsive. And they tell me about their person. They tell me, and they're telling me obviously about themselves at the same time. And I will then turn and this is modeling how to be with a person who's dying. I'll look at the person and I'll say, can I just hope that you can feel the love in this room? Can you feel the love in this room, Meg? You are surrounded. And what a gift you have been. You have been this and you have been that. And I'm struck by the image of all the ripples your life has created. And that thank you for that. And I heard there's some suffering too. And I want to say, thank you for holding the suffering. And I'm sorry that we all have to hold suffering. Um, but you are surrounded by love and you are safe and you are held and you are guided and you're never alone. Can't be. It's not possible. And there's love that has come before you were born, and there's this through line while you are living, and after you die, that through line is still there. So it is something that you can hold on to and your family will hold on to. So I think I use my voice as a tool, my groundedness as a tool, reflecting what I've heard back, and saying the things that people may not want to say. I frequently say, this body's not working anymore. And I know you're attached to it. It's 86 years you've been in this body, and it's hard to let go of that. And you will. And we here will hold you lightly. And actually, this makes me think of a prayer that I might go, hey, can I read a prayer? And if they're into God, I don't preface it, but if they're not into God, I might say, it's got the word God in it, but it's okay. We work with that. Is that okay? And actually, may I read it to you now?
Please.
Okay. It's called the Prayer of Release. Our souls are in the hands of God. No pain shall ever touch them. With our limited vision, death appears to be a tragedy, yet only in death is the soul set free. When the time is right, the body dies. The soul struggles to release itself, as does a butterfly from its cocoon. Newly emerged, it alights upon a gentle breeze and begins the peaceful journey home. So that is a prayer that opens up a whole bunch of conversation. And it allows me to point to that sort of mystery of dying, that labor of dying, that struggle. And also it lets me say, this is something that the monarch butterfly, you don't want to open their cocoon for them, right? Their wings don't work then. So I think it's similar here. We want, this is a labor. It might look like that sometimes, and it takes time. It takes its own time, and we have to be patient with that. And we can hold this space lightly as they are doing their work. So this is where the bearing witness comes in. And this is where a family that's having tons of conversation, there's a time for lots of conversation and celebration and loudness in the room, but then it also, it can be a nice segue to say, and sometimes nobody wants to leave the party when it's going on. Who wants to leave the party when they're having a good time? So sometimes we have to quiet the space down. And so that might look like fewer conversations in the room. And I even let people know that holding on, I've seen doggy piles on top of loved ones. Like, we might have to give them a little space to let them go. Even switching a hand from top to underneath, so it's not holding. And sometimes after I have talked to people who are dying and they have been struggling and the family is exhausted, I might even just be honest, like, your family's here. They've been here. They want to be here. But we're also, and I'll just kind of say it, I'm wondering if maybe it would be easier for you to let go if you were alone. And I can tell if a family member panics about that, and I can address that. Sometimes there's 6 people in the room, so you kind of keep your eye on everybody. But sometimes I can convince them to maybe spend a night at home. Or one time I let a family know, like, I was just like, you know what I think we have to do? I think we all have to go get coffee. And we went down to the end of the hall. I said, you guys go get coffee. I'm going to get something from my office, and I'll meet you back here in like 15 minutes. How does that sound? Sure enough, he died while no one was in the room. And that is not uncommon. So I don't know if I answered your question, Meg, but I use my body, I use my voice, I use hearing in all ways. And I don't know. And I invite comments and thoughts too. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
So, and another thing, a good segue to the mindfulness is guided imagery is, this is a very helpful tool I have found, and I use it more and more and more. And I use it frequently, if I'm at a medical aid and dying, and the reason, if I'm at a medical aid and dying, I've been working with a person for a while before it, and they want spiritual support in the room, and not everybody does. But if I'm there, that's why I'm there, and they've requested it. But if I'm working with somebody, let's say it's a Harley dude comes in, he can't ride anymore. He's heartbroken. A lot of his identity has been taken away from him. And I say, well, tell me everything about your favorite ride. Tell me every detail. Where do you go? Where do you stop and get your, breakfast? Where do you get your coffee? What vistas do you like to stop on? You go around Lake Champlain. How do you do that? And they tell me their favorite ride. And that way they're kind of taking that ride, right? And the other thing that I'm doing there is listening for the ride and the details of it. And then I will say to them, when you can't talk anymore and you can't engage like this anymore, I'm going to take you on that ride. I'm going to take you on that ride. But we'll have to practice some between now and then. So I'm kind of setting them up for that transition journey. But even more importantly, this happened with a woman who loved kayaking. I'm taking her kayaking. I'm like, you've got your boat, you're, on top of the car, you're getting down, you're getting in the water. And I did this with family members in the room, friends. And she was actively dying when I was not there. And they snapped right into it. They started taking her kayaking on her favorite pond in the way. And she died in that guided imagery. So giving the family a tool. And very frequently I'll give nurses and LNAs the story. Like, she really likes hiking Camel's Hump. So if she's going to help calm her down, take her hiking on Camel's Hump. And with with medical aid and dying, you can really set this up, right? This is a story I'm allowed to share. I was at a medical aid and dying. We had worked a long time to get her, do a ceremony with her. So she wanted everyone in the room. She wanted everyone in the room to have a role. So we picked some prayers and some blessings and some poetry, and we had everyone say their part, say goodbye, offer her their love and encouragement and her strength. And her biggest fear was that she wasn't going to see her family after she died. She was Christian. It was very important to her that she did see them, and she was worried that she might not. So when we, after the initial medication, we did the ceremony, we knew we had like 25, 30 minutes. And we did the blessings and the prayers and the engagement. And then I took her on her favorite hike. And I had actually, in this case, gone to hike it, so I knew it. And it was at Red Rocks overlooking Lake Champlain. So I took her on this hike, and I timed it so that she could get to this bench, and her daughter, in the imagery, her daughter was walking her to the bench. We got to the bench. I said, now we are going to take that medicine. Now you're going to drink that drink, and your daughter is going to go back. But if you look just down the way, the family that has predeceased you, and I named them, they're coming to get you. So it was like this exchange at the bench. And it was like the last word she heard, being awake, was that her family was approaching the bench to come get her. And so, it's all a great mystery. I don't know anything. I am very happy to say that. Maybe that's all she needed, right? Maybe the image of her deceased loved ones coming to get her, and I named them and I described them a little bit. Maybe that's all she needed to then be with them. We don't really know. So anyway, I did. And then her funeral, we went on this hike. So we had the funeral at this place at Red Rocks, and everybody did a silent walk. I told them this story. We gave them all a flower. They walked in silence, infusing that flower with their love and their thoughts and their wishes and their memories for the deceased person. We got to a clearing in the woods. We had a bouquet. We circled, and we had a memorial. So it was like, and she knew that was going to happen. So it was like, we did this whole thing together the whole way right through. So guided imagery in that way, and really just fully working with the person who's dying and the family.
Those differences in approach, Nina, do they come into play sometimes if someone feels that they don't want spiritual care or has some ideas about what spiritual care might entail? There's an exchange in the chat about, people declining spiritual care, and
Yes. Yeah.
it feels like you've talked a lot about different ways to approach that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that we're a really secular state. we so spiritual care gets declined a lot. And I think when I was in community, I was declined a lot. So in hospice, we're an interdisciplinary team. We work very closely together. Nurses, social work, chaplain, medical director, LNA, volunteer coordinators. It's a very tight thing. So I would get declined a lot, but the nurse knew me and would often recommend me. And once they got to know her, they would take her recommendation. And these are people who are Catholic and their priest is coming, but there's just something different about a sort of a casual chaplain. That being me. I'm like, I just want to hear about your life. Tell me about life story. Tell me everything about you. And, you listen way more than you talk. And people tell you so many things. And as you're listening, you can start to get into things like fear and anger, regrets. And so through these deep listening sessions and talking sessions about anything, I don't care. Sometimes I'm like, what are you watching? You want to just watch it. And then things start to come out. You can use props in the room. Props in the room are a very, very powerful a tool. But getting in the room is sometimes the challenge. And so use your team to help you get in there. And it's okay. There's like more than 100 people on hospice and 4 chaplains. We actually can't do it all. So I'm always okay with like, okay, that's not what's meant to be. And then divine intervention, I'm in the rooms that I need to be in. And sometimes rooms I haven't been in, I can be sort of escorted in. A crying family member in the hallway, and I just show a moment of compassion. They can hug me and then bring me into the room. So let go, let God. There's a higher power of some kind, whatever it is. I also put my faith in that.
With medical aid in dying patients, I believe that that's something that's not available at the McClure Miller Hospice House. So, would you work with MAID patients elsewhere, wherever they might be going to ingest?
Yeah, absolutely. And when I did most of those in community, when I was a community
Okay.
hospice chaplain, and I still have a couple of community people, but we would go to their house. But I've been called into Airbnbs before to do this. That particular person wanted a Buddhist chaplain to come be there, and we offered chanting to them and appropriate spiritual readings for him. But if people get to know me and they are going to do this and they're doing the process at the respite house, but then they're going home or some lovely place that you all know about, and they want me to join them, I will. In hospice, we want 2 people to be if they're on hospice, it's great if 2 of us are in the room, 2 staff people. It's not 100% necessary, but it's encouraged just so that we have each other. Sometimes things take a little bit longer. I did it with a very young person. It took much longer than we expected. So the nurse and I sat in the other room and did other work and checked on the family and here and there after I did the spiritual things that he was requesting.
Great, thank you. We are just about at 1 o'clock, and so happy to continue the conversation as long as Nina is willing to do that. And Andrea did have her hand up with a question, and as I said, I'm happy to stay after and answer questions as well. We do try to kind of respect the posted closing time so that people who need to leave can feel able to do so. So I'll put a few other pieces of information in the chat. And in the meantime, Andrea, if you'd like to ask your question.
Hi, Nina. It's good to see you in this
Hey.
context. I've seen you intermittently through this long journey that you've been on. It doesn't surprise me at all that you are where you are.
Thank you.
My question is, I had the experience of interacting with a spiritual care person when my mom was in hospice. My mom adamantly refused anything to do with anything that
Mhm.
had to do with that. I mean,
Mhm.
really, and that was her. But I found that my interactions with the spiritual care person, this was at CVMC, and it was someone from the hospice team at Central Vermont Home Health and Hospice.
Mhm.
Um, she was incredibly helpful to me. And
Mhm.
are you allowed, or is it part of your process to figure out if there's someone within the family group? I mean, I was the only one there, so there, it wasn't like a choice of who do you talk to. Um, but is
Absolutely.
that part of the practice to find out how
Absolutely.
the family members or whoever is doing or needs that support? Um,
Absolutely. In community, I spend a lot of time one-on-one with the people that I was visiting, the patient, the client. At Respite House, people are there so much closer to end of life that they can be unresponsive. So I am absolutely there for the family. And I will go into the family room or in the reflection room and talk. And a lot of my job now, every time I open a door, I don't know what I'm going to find. It's like, oh, there's 22 people in this room. That's kind of crazy. Or there's one person, or there's no person. So, actually, part of my job really does feel like facilitating family, coming to understand what their needs are, mediating, or yeah, between family members who have different opinions. Like, should we have sacrament of the sick for him? Last rites, let's call it up right now. No way, he doesn't want that. So, navigating that kind of thing. And so, yes, and some of my deepest conversations now are with family and resolving for them what needs to be resolved, and being in the space with the person who's not responsive. I believe their spirit, soul, whatever you want to call it, is still engaged. So I feel like we're all working together on what's going on. But absolutely, anticipatory grief, regrets, encouraging them to use the Ira Byock language of forgive me, I forgive you, I love you, thank you, goodbye. Those are super important things at end of life. And I'm guiding family and teaching family. And my secret hope is that when they have ended this experience at the respite house, that they then hold in them how to be and do this for them, for other people out in the world. It's like, I hope it's a ripple from the interaction and
oh
the
yeah.
experience.
Yeah, I mean, I had that advice from this counselor of
Mm-hmm.
what to say, and because of the way things worked out, I wasn't present when my mom died, but I was there shortly afterwards, and she had encouraged me so strongly to consider saying these things that I realized, well, I can say them now,
Absolutely.
and even though my mother had already passed, and I recognized afterwards that that was incredibly helpful to me
Yeah.
because of her adamant refusal to engage
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
any. And she had dementia, so it had been a long time since we had been able to have any kind of a
Yeah.
really complicated or emotional conversation. So I am grateful for that practice that seems to be common among uh, the hospice community and so on and so forth. Thank you for reminding me of that. I had not thought of it in a while.
And I'm so glad you said them even so. I mean, Buddhists, we think they're still hanging out for
Yeah.
3 days, in some form. But again,
Hmm.
it's all a mystery and we don't know. So we don't know.
Why not? Give it a
Why
try.
not? Even just for your own heart,
Yeah,
right?
well, it
Yeah.
certainly was very,
Yeah.
very, very helpful to me.
Good. Thank you for
And
sharing.
thank you for this conversation and presentation.
Yeah.
Really
Thank you all
appreciate
for
it.
being here.
And I'm going to be reaching out to you about something else. So.
Please do.
Okay.
Anyone can if you want to have a conversation.
Thank you so much. Nina, you got a call back. One of our participants, I think, as he was needing to go, said, please invite Nina back to continue this conversation. So just
Mm,
wanted to pass that along and make sure
sure.
that you see all the very nice comments and affirmations that people are putting in the chat. I also put some informational stuff in the chat. I did put the donation link for PCV, and I also put the link to our videos page. Once this video is processed and formatted, so to speak, everybody who registered today will get an email linking you to that page, but just know that the video will be available. And I'd like to just highlight that the next Exit Matters will be 1 month from today because of the way February and March fall. It will be Tuesday, March 24th at 7 p.m. and it will feature the volunteers of the PCV helpline talking about their work and what we can learn from the inquiries we get. And we know that will be another fabulous presentation. So Nina, we are so grateful.
Before
Absolutely.
I go?
I was going to toss it back to you for closing remarks, but let me just tell you how happy we are to have you. So.
Oh, I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you for the invitation, and Meg for encouraging it. And this is fun, and it's an endless topic, so we could talk forever. But this is a poem that I like to use at the after somebody's passed away, holding family in that space. And I'm just going to read it, and I need my glasses for this one because it's small. It's called Peace My Heart by Tagore. Peace my heart. Let the time for parting be sweet. Let it not be a death, but completeness. Let love melt into memory and pain into songs. Let the flight through the sky end in the folding of the wings over the nest. Let the last touch of your hands be gentle, like the flower of the night. Stand still, O beautiful end, for a moment, and say your last words in silence. I bow to you and hold up my lamp to light your way.